Welcome to Job Math, the podcast dedicated to helping Gen Z professionals navigate their career paths. I'm Dale.
And I'm Lisa, your career coach. Today, we're tackling a crucial topic: how to make your resume stand out and land that dream job.
We often hear that resumes are the stumbling block in job searches. What's your take on this, Lisa?
It's a very common issue. Most job seekers don't realize that their resumes, frankly, suck. But the good news is they're fixable.
And we also hear things along the lines of, my resume is fine. Someone very important told me so it must be great. But mysteriously, these same candidates tell us they're still not getting invited to interview. So we know there must be a problem there. And the problem is that opinions on resumes are very common, but good advice about resumes is sadly very rare. So we're going to try and do something about that today, give you some advice, perhaps dig a little bit deeper into why we give some of these pieces of advice so you can understand maybe the DNA of a good resume. So let's first of all talk about why resumes are important, why we actually love resumes at Job Math and Career Badger, who needs a resume and maybe who doesn't. So we hear this a lot. It's the 21st century. Everything's digital. Why are we still using this antiquated, originally paper-based format to apply for jobs? And that's probably fair, and for a lot of roles today, yeah, you absolutely don't need a resume. If you're maybe a truck driver, say, if you turn up at a depot with your truck driving license, your insurance, you've had a shower and you don't smell a booze, then you're probably going to, in this market where I think in a lot of places there's shortage of truck drivers, you're probably going to get a role without needing to write a formal resume. Similarly, roles like baristas or bar staff, if you walk into your local establishment with help needed sign, you're going to be asked to make a cappuccino, make a cosmopolitan. If you do a good job, you're personable, again, clean and tidy, well presented, all those sort of things, likely is you're going to get hired. We're really talking about resumes is for professional roles where majority of that work is in front of a laptop, in front of a computer, and so that a big part of that is that written communication. And resumes are a great test about whether you can write clearly and succinctly, and it's completely fair because everyone's resume has the same topic, it's themselves. So Lisa, kick us off. What makes a good resume, or where should we start thinking about this?
Yeah, we need to start by understanding that our resumes are our personal advertisements. They are sales and marketing documents for us as the brand. So it's not about listing every job you've ever had. It's not your biography. It's not a Wikipedia page, right? It is to showcase how you're the perfect fit for the role that you want now.
Right, okay, so the resume is all about selling yourself effectively.
Exactly. And to sell effectively, you need to make your resume as relevant as possible. So if you're applying for a marketing role, highlight your experience in marketing campaigns and social media management, successful projects that boosted awareness of what you were working on. We want to see less, if anything, of non-relevant experiences and more of what is relevant.
Okay, so get it. So we're selling, we're trying to be relevant to the job that we're applying for. What are the common mistakes that people make?
The biggest mistake is too long, right? 1 to 2 pages or many, many more pages, right? For someone that is mistakenly listing everything they've ever done. So we really recommend 1 page only for people under 5 years of experience, 2 pages max if you have more than 5 years of experience, but 5 years of relevant experience. So we're focusing on our recent relevant experience, definitely listing that at the top. Another mistake is not writing in a simple format with bullet points. We want to make it very easy to read. And also, one we're going to talk more about too is not putting quantifiable achievements. So we need to focus on the length, the format, and quantifying all of our achievements.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to do a deep dive in each of these three things as we move on. But why are these three things especially so important?
Yeah, so the main reason we're coming back to these three items is that we need our resumes to be understandable and scannable for a recruiter.
So for a recruiter, why do we care about recruiters so much? I mean, they're not the hiring manager. They don't decide whether I get the job or not. What makes them so important?
Well, in general, the recruiter is the first point of contact. So for most job seekers, that could mean the first point of failure. In a lot of cases, they do that first round review and they screen applications before it's going to a hiring manager. So the hiring manager is only getting that curated list of resumes and applicants that the recruiter has chosen for them to interview. So in that case, they are really important in who's deciding who makes it through the rounds. So it doesn't matter how perfect you think you are for the role. If the recruiter can't easily find it, you're not going to progress further. Many jobs get hundreds or thousands of applications, and recruiters very efficiently scan in just a few seconds.
A few seconds. Okay, so that really brings it home how succinct and clear we need the document to be, so it's easy to do. So how can we do that? How can we make a resume easy for a recruiter to both understand or understand just by scanning in a few seconds?
So this is where we are going to remind you again, simple format is best. Otherwise, your resume will not make it past an ATS system.
Ooh, the dreaded ATS. So we should explain what an ATS is. So the ATS stands for Applicant Tracking System. Basically, this is software to help companies and recruiters process job applications, so they don't lose CVs and inbox, all that sort of stuff. And especially when they have lots of jobs and lots of applications to go through. And when we say simple format, what are we talking about?
So really, we're talking about just text. No boxes, columns, images, no fancy layouts. There are tons of fancy layouts online. Do not get lured in by those. We are talking simple text format is best.
So they look really pretty, but actually they might be harming our chances of getting seen by a recruiter or being well uh, reviewed by the recruiter. Awesome. And then what about the structure? How should a resume be laid out?
Again, we're going to recommend as simple as possible. Think 3 to 4 sections in this order. Right up at the top, let's list our name and contact details. We need to make it easy for them to know who it is who's applying. So make sure you have your personalized LinkedIn URL, your city, state, or country, your portfolio, right up at the top. Next, a summary. Again, this is a high level overview of who you are. Then all of that experience. Remember, most relevant experience first, then education.
Okay, so sounds easy. Now, so summary. This is sometimes divisive for people when you ask them for advice about resumes. But why do we put a summary, and how should we write one?
It is divisive, but I love a summary because it is putting your highlights at the top of a document, making it really easy for recruiters to go ahead and slide you into that yes pile for an interview. We also know that people read pages from top to bottom, and again, they're seeing it first. So think of starting the summary with the job title that you want. So if you're applying for social media manager, put that right up in the top, followed by years of experience and key attributes, again, for that particular job.
Okay, so to maybe flesh that out a bit when we talk about key attributes, or maybe talk about a few examples here. So for technical roles, maybe like software engineering, you would be senior Java developer, and then listing maybe two or three of your most important uh, programming languages, frameworks, elements of your tech stack, the ones you're most experienced in and the ones you want to get a role in. Maybe take that social media example, maybe thinking about the type of marketing you're doing. Is that very much more brand building or is it more performance based? So put those keywords that you want to get found for, write it that in those first couple of lines. For other roles, maybe it's the industry experience. So you're putting healthcare, e-commerce, financial services, whatever it may be. And that reinforces and sort of like that tick, tick, tick for the recruiter. First of all, they're seeing those skills, they're seeing that domain expertise in the first couple of lines of the summary, which I say might fast forward you into that yes part for interview.
Yes, we're writing it for them, right? We're making it easy for them to see our brand, how we are going to solve what they're looking for in that job.
And we should mention we've created a template to help people, which you can find on the Career Badger website in our resources area. After the summary, we then put something else. What else do we put just in part at the end of the summary?
Then you should put your top 2 to 3 achievements.
Got it. Now, okay, about achievements, how detailed should we get?
That's a great question. Let's remember to be specific and quantifiable everywhere we can in our resume. So here's a quick example. Instead of saying made cold calls and closed deals with clients, say delivered 2 million of new business revenue through cold calling clients.
Got it. And so we're putting that achievement, it's quantifiable, money, dollar signs right at the start. That's fantastic. So let's I'll put some meat on the bones here for different roles. Clearly, sales is pretty easy. It's nearly all about the money. And so you want to have big dollar assigned amounts right at the start of your achievements. And for all of these different, whatever type of role you've got, whatever industry you're in, being able to tie something back to monetary value is the gold standard, and try and do that wherever you can, even if that's a little bit estimated. You might say, well, we did this, and therefore you can estimate what that monetary value, so long as you can justify that and it's sort of reasonable and plausible at the same time. But I'll give you a couple of examples. So maybe account management or marketing. So again, it's about revenue. How much revenue were you responsible for? How much did it grow from X to Y? Get those, say, great to have that in percentages, but even better to have it with the monetary dollar, euro, pound signs, whatever it may be. For project management, where sometimes that link to revenue is a little bit harder, you can maybe think about the size of budgets of the projects you manage. So you don't necessarily know what the outcome of all those projects is, but the budget around the projects is a good proxy for your seniority, amount of trust that's been put into you by your organization. For maybe product or tech roles, if you can, again, think about that revenue. Don't always think about all of the features. And where you can tie those back to revenue growth, say we're going to keep on repeating, if you can, tie it to revenue growth. But if not, you may be an early stage startup where you're pre-revenue, but you could be talking about the number of new customers, the number of downloads, how you improve conversion rates, or maybe in other more established organizations, maybe how you save money, that piece of technology you built, reduce the number of CS tickets that are being coming through, and so there's less human effort. You can maybe estimate what the business value, what the dollar value amount of that was.
It's all about how you have made the company better by being there, right? That's why we're quantifying everything. We haven't just come and done the bare minimum. We have made an impact, and we're aware of the impact we've made.
And anything to be mindful of when writing these achievements?
Yes, write them in bullet points.
And this might sound like a super dumb question, but what do we mean by a bullet point?
Think 10 to 20 words, 1 to 2 lines. Don't make the text smaller or extend the line length of the document to fit more things in. Think about impactful language. Additionally, let's avoid jargon and acronyms. Simple ones might be okay, but the recruiter must understand what we are telling them.
100%. Yeah, we see resumes which are theoretically in bullet points, but they're little dots next to long paragraphs, and so say that's not really the spirit. Say the bullet points are all about making it scannable, isn't it? So let's maybe take an example of these acronyms. Tech companies especially now love a three-letter acronym or even longer sometimes. I'll give you an example from my past. E-commerce marketplaces like eBay or Amazon, they use the acronym of GMV, which stands for Gross Merchandise Value. Basically, it's talking about the amount of stuff that gets sold. So again, simplify that. Need to be talking about sales on site or on-site sales or website revenue, those sort of things. Even though, strictly speaking, those companies aren't getting all of that. Obviously, not all the money of the goods you buy on eBay is going all to eBay. Some of it's going to the seller as well. And eBay is taking, and Amazon are taking a small percentage of that as commission or service fee. But say, using really simple language is really important and not using acronyms that are going to confuse the recruiter, who, remember, are not those subject matter experts. They're not doing the job that you're doing, so won't necessarily know all the different jargon acronyms. What else?
Start your bullet points with that achievement and outcome. So we've just been talking about why to quantify. This is what we mean. Start that bullet point with something like drove $10 million of revenue by doing X, Y, and Z. So we're putting that quantifiable impact right at the start.
So there's a cool test you can do here if you want to see if you're starting your bullet points with your achievements and with those big numbers first. Is put your hand like over the document, over the right hand side of the document, and then sort of try and see if you can make sense of the document and the impact you're getting just by looking down the left hand side of the document. Again, back to that human instinct, particularly in European languages where you're reading left to right. So the recruiter is going to be reading left to right, top to bottom. So if you can roll your eye down your document and it still makes sense, even with only seeing half of the words, that's a great sign. And how many bullet points or achievements should we put for each of our experiences or jobs we've had in our past?
So mostly let's think of 1 to 5 bullets per role, especially for those recent and relevant roles. We want to keep it to the highest level impact. 1 to 5 is going to showcase what we've done without, again, adding in those paragraphs because we're keeping it brief.
Cool. And do all the bullet points need to be quantifiable achievements?
Not necessarily. There are some things that we do that are important that we just can't quantify, but whenever possible, yes. And make sure that your top achievement is the top bullet point under each experience. Remember how we just talked about reading in these languages. We're going to start at the top bullet first. And it's okay to repeat your achievement in your summary and in your experience, right? Summaries at the top. It's my key highlight reel of everything that I've done. So say I increased sales by 10 million at X company, then they can go see that again down in my experience section. It's highlighting my key achievements. It's also helping that recruiter keep scanning down to see everything that I've achieved.
Okay, and then what else? So I think hopefully by now the listeners are getting the message about bullet points, about quantifiable achievements. We want to see those numbers. What else can we put in our experience blocks?
So if you look at our template, we suggest writing a 1 to 2 line description of your company. If you're in a very large, well-known company, perhaps describe the division and department. Certainly if it's a startup, maybe not a name brand, you really want to make sure we understand where your company is in the market. And again, this is another case, another shortcut to help that recruiter understand where you are coming from because they don't have time to go and do that research. So again, we're making it easy for them to highlight everything we've done, and that company description is a great addition.
Nice. So another common question we get, should I put my photo on my resume?
99% of the time, no way. If you happen to be from a place where you know that that is required, certainly you would do that. But most of all, in multinational companies, we're going to say, no way.
So particularly if you're in European or North American markets or applying to, say, a large international business that will have, uh, I guess, corporate norms around probably American or European culture, yeah, 100%. We think you should avoid putting your photograph on there. We'll maybe talk about why that's the case, but before we do that, let's think about. Can you list out some of the other things that people should avoid putting on their resume and why?
Yeah, so let's think of other things that are very personal in nature. So, our date of birth, our banking details, references, our full address. In a lot of cases, consider whether a phone number is even needed. Then, dates of education or a lot of details about our education, marital status, number of children, all of those very personal qualifiers. We are saying, let's avoid those.
And there's a couple of things. I mean, and I think most of these fall into maybe one or two brackets. One is about your own data privacy and personal safety. You don't want to be giving out lots of detail about yourself. That could either mean that people are hacking your bank account or your personal online accounts. Um, and also, I think just tagging back to that photo, this talks about a lot about the anti-discrimination regulation that exists in most developed markets now. And so recruiters and companies can't discriminate against you based on your sex or gender, your race, ethnicity, religious affiliation, sexual orientation, left and right-handed for that matter. But sorry, I'm getting. But there's a whole bunch of these things, and so we don't want to be giving pointers. And age, I guess, is the other one. We reference about the dates of your education. We don't want to be giving calls or facilitating more of that discrimination through the job seeking process. We can't get rid of people's prejudices, but we probably can't feed them even more than they already have them. So, and we talked about education. So the final section is the education section. Any tips for this?
Yeah, so in general, based on what we've just saying, no dates needed. The caveat there would be if you have recently gotten a master's degree or an MBA specifically to make a career pivot, you likely want to show that as a very relevant recent skill that's adding again to the credibility of what you're applying for. But otherwise, no dates. Now, only list your most recent. If you have gone to some type of college, don't remove high school, things like that. And really don't give too much detail. After we have been out working, education, that's why we have it at the bottom, is usually the last thing that companies are looking for. They are looking more for our quantifiable achievements that we've been discussing in the workplace, because that really is where we are showcasing putting all of our skills into action. So if it's relevant, certainly keep it in, but otherwise, we don't need to know everything that you achieved during that time of your life.
Okay, so and so your hobbies are around, all that module you did on ancient Egyptian archaeology, fascinating. Maybe a bit of color you might bring to during your interview, but not really pertinent for your resume at this point. So another common question we get is, should I tailor my resume for specific jobs?
So we can be real when we're answering this question. If we all had unlimited time and that's all we were doing every day, then sure, we should tailor our resume for specific jobs. However, most of us have many other things we have to do and would rather be doing than simply spending all of our time working on our resume. So, unless you're a career coach like me, looking at resumes is probably not high up on your list of things you're hoping to do. So, here's how we get around that in a realistic way. We focus on our objectives. We're clear on what we're looking for. So then that summary is going to work for all the different companies we're applying to, because we know what we're targeting. Now, we do want to make sure we avoid typos, we avoid the jargon, and we want to tailor it in that summary section, but that's realistic. We want to make it where it's professional and fit what we want, but we just want to be real about the time we have and the enjoyment for most everyone who doesn't choose to do career coaching like me.
Not everyone is as obsessed about resumes as you and me, Lisa.
I don't know what that says about me more broadly, but that's a different podcast episode.
Yeah, we maybe need to do a hookup with BetterHelp, but we'll get to that. Yeah, I think certainly from my own experience, it takes a lot of conscientiousness, right, to write a resume from scratch for every single job you're applying. And we're recording in January 2024. There's more headlines of big company layoffs in both Europe and North America. So I think job seekers today are going to need to apply for probably quite a lot of roles, and so you want to manage those energy levels, have that sustainable process that you can keep going. We're going to we should do another piece about career objectives or professional objectives. So for sure, if you want to hear about that, tag us, and we'll try and do that sooner rather than later. But I think that's a really important topic to get onto. But unfortunately, time for another day. Any final tips for our listeners before we wrap, Lisa?
Yes, get someone like me who loves resumes to proof your document. One, it's easy to make typos, but even more than that, we've given you a lot of different tips, and it's good to have another set of eyes to make sure you are quantifying everything and really utilizing this effectively as a branding document. So within that, we are not aiming for perfect. When you get it good enough, which is why we have a template and why we offer coaching, just get out there and start applying. Then you have a gauge. If I'm getting interviews for the job that I want, my resume is good enough. That marketing document got me to the right recruiter and got me through to the interview. So start there, get out there and apply. Then you can assess after a couple of weeks. If I'm not hearing back, that's when I might want to go review and edit. But still, we aren't aiming for perfect. We're aiming for good enough. If you follow our template and our tips here, we know you're going to get there.
Great. So yeah, that work-life balance, really important. Guys, we are going to put links to our guides and the templates in the notes, or the dibbly-doos, as people like to call them these days. And obviously, if you want to reach out and ask Lisa and I questions in the future, don't be shy. Come and see us on Career Badger. I'll leave some comments or questions in the platform of your choice. We're currently on YouTube, Spotify. You can also find us on TikTok and Instagram, all with the handle of job_math. So come hang out and join us there. Thank you very much. Lisa, we out.
Bye.